So just thought I'd do a little video about my Talisman collection, because it's an awesome game that doesn't really get enough love at the moment. And I've got quite a lot of expansions. I spent quite a lot of money on this. So I'll start with the base game. Oh, I don't love the smell of board games. Oh. I remember picking this up with my good mate Josh when we was in London for the weekend, and we ended up playing the base game in our hotel room rather than going out and experiencing London. We just sat in our hotel room that we paid about 80 quid for the night, and played this just with the base game, and awesome. Dungeon and Woodland rule books, which I'll get to in a minute. So, oh shit, a massive bag of characters. All these miniatures, all of these are playable characters in the game, and they all have different set of different abilities and special powers that they can use to help them in their quest for the Talisman and the Crown of Command. So that's awesome. Big bag full of strength and craft tokens, as well with fate counters, gold and fireland tokens, all that can be used within the game. All the characters here. Oh wow, so many cards in this game, so many. Because I've bought so many expansions, I've just got so many adventure cards just piled up. So I've got a shitload of characters from loads of different expansions. You've got all of these characters here, so I'll go through them as to what characters you could be if you were to play this game. The Amazon, the Gladiator, the Swashbuckler, Philosopher, Gypsy, Nomad, Highlander, Elf, Priest, Warlord, Alchemist, Grave Robber, Vampiress, Dread Knight, Sage, Celestial, Necromancer, Knight, Sprite, Dark Cultist, Rogue, Magus, Dervish, Valkyrie, Spider Queen, Laywalker, Scout, Wizard, Elementalist, Leprechaun, Gin-Blooded, Totem Warrior, Warlock, Merchant, Spy, Chivalric Knight, Ghoul, Druid, Monk, Warrior, Minstrel, Troll, Sorceress, Thief, Possessed, Tavern Maid, Bounty Hunter, Ascendant Divine, Ancient Oak, Doomsayer, Vampire Hunter, Prophetess, should I say, Cat Burglar, Dwarf, Cleric, Assassin, Ogre Chieftain, and Tinkerer. All of those characters you can be during a game of Talisman. Now, in my experience, you pick one character, and in my experience, normally because my games are quite long and they include all the expansions, which include a lot of difficult creatures to come across and a lot of difficult events, the first character you choose normally dies at some point, unless you're going for a good load of card draw and you're having a good lot of good fortune. But a lot of my characters, simply because I just tend to die at the games I own, a lot of my characters die. Then we've also got Toad characters. If your character gets turned into a toad, you obviously take a Toad character sheet, and they're just rubbish. They can't do anything. They can only move one space at a time, and their stats are shit. They can't carry any items, so you drop all your items if you turn into a toad. It's just a bad time if you get turned into a toad, and everyone normally laughs at you if the enchantress or the profiteer or whatever turns you into a toad when you go visit the village. Then you've got all of these scenarios that will alter your Talisman game experience. You can either play with just the standard set of rules, or you can use one of these cards to alter the game when you get to the Crown of Command, and they're awesome, especially this one. This is the one I'm going to be using in my upcoming game with my best friends Josh and Nick and Jared. Wanderlust, which means you have to travel to every part of the expansion board in order to progress into the middle, into the Crown of Command. So you have to explore the whole thing, which is why it's called Wanderlust. So that's going to be a good game if that game comes to fruition. So I've obviously explored the characters, explored the scenarios, and then you've got a whole fucking stack of adventure cards all here which you will. Wow. I should have known that was going to happen. The sheer volume of adventure cards just spewed forth out of my hands and onto the floor. Let's just take one as an example, shall we? Now they're all over the floor, let's just see. So whenever you land on a space, that space will tell you to draw so many cards, and these are the cards that you would draw if you were to land on a certain space. Let's just draw one just for example. Here, Colossus. Colossus is a follower, so if you were to go to the hills or something and you drew this card, you'd find a Colossus, and he's a follower, so he's just, you know, moping around in the hills, and he wants to follow you. He's seen your prowess and your ambition to claim the talisman, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to add 2 of my strength to you during battle. So this guy follows you around, and he adds 2 to your strength during battle, because he's a Colossus. And at the start of your turn, you may crush any place. You may crush any place cards in your space into the discard pile. So place cards are like little cities or little establishments that will pop up when you draw them in the space. And this guy can just fucking destroy them. So if there's a marketplace there that you don't want, the Colossus can just go, whoa, smash the marketplace to the ground. Which is useful if there's, you know, there's little establishments popping up that you don't want and you want to draw a card. So this guy's cool. Let's just do another one. So say you drew him and you also drew this. Oh, it's a bandit, strength 4. So this means you'd have to face this bandit in combat. Strength 4 battle combat. Combat's really simple, but I won't go over it because I can't be asked. But whenever you draw cards, there's a little number in the bottom of the card here that tells you the order in which you encounter them. So you'd encounter the bandit first, and then you'd encounter the Colossus afterwards. So you'd fight the bandit without the Colossus, and then thematically the Colossus would be like, wow, you're really, really good in battle, and therefore he would follow you. So yeah, it's all these cards, you would, obviously whenever you land on a space, you would draw a certain card from a certain deck, and this is the generic adventure deck. So as you can see, I've got quite a few generic encounter cards, and this is just because I've bought so many expansions and spent hundreds of pounds on this game that there are so many cards to cycle through and so many things to encounter, which is great about Talisman. Yeah, some of my favourite board games are very much random, and this is probably the most random game that you can play. I mean, Eldritch Horror and other things like that are very, very random, but I won't talk about those. I'll talk about this game. But this game is extremely random, and I love how thematic it is. And you know, there are certain skills involved, but that is really, I mean, the skill in this game is just really identifying what you need to do and how you're going to get there. But a lot of games are just played by just waltzing around the board and just fight and just, you know, seeing what you run into. That's the you know, the main draw to this game is just the sheer amount of things that can happen to your characters and the amount of items and followers and events that, you know, appear, and it's just an awesome game. It really is. So that's all the adventure cards, which I spilled everywhere, all over the place. So I'm just going to tidy these up now. Fucking loads of them. It really is. That's the thing as well. With Talisman, no game is the same, because you're never going to run into all of these, you know, the combination of these cards in a single game. You're just not. Every game is different because there's so many different cards, so many different encounters. And these cards here that I've just explained to you are just the generic encounters that you'd find if you were to land on a space that were to say draw a card. On the sort of the main game board, you would draw any of these cards. But if you was in a different place, like, you know, one of the expansion boards, like the forest, the city, the dungeon, or the hills, or the highland, then you draw one of those specific deck cards instead, which I'll show you in a minute. So what we got? What's this? What is this? What is this? I think this is dungeon cards. Yeah, so these are dungeon cards. So these cards are basically the same as those. So you draw, if you was in the dungeon, you draw a dungeon card rather than a normal card. And this is a living statue of strength 5. If a living statue thunders into this area, if you defeat the living statue, the attack counts as a standoff unless you defeat it with a weapon that is a magic object. So with this guy, you can't kill him unless you've got a magical weapon because he's a fucking living statue. So he's tough as nails. So yeah, the dungeon cards do tend to be harder. I mean, the dungeon area is probably the hardest area to venture in. So you have to be properly well equipped before you go into there. So that's the dungeon cards, which are basically adventure cards for the dungeon. Then you've got these, which are the Highland cards. So these tend to be like venturing in the highlands and the hills and the mountains, trying to find the Eagle King. Let's just draw a random card from this adventure pile. A cave. You find a cave, which is a place. So earlier on we talk about how the Colossus could destroy a place. He could destroy this cave and remove it from the game board if he wanted. The cave, see what you discover by rolling one die in the cave. So if you land on the space with the cave, you'd roll a dice and you'd either lose 1 life and discard this card because you get caved in. You'd be attacked by a cave troll. You could lose your next turn by becoming lost, or you could find gold in there. So that's also quite a gamble, and that's the main thing with Talisman. It is a huge gamble. There's a lot of dice rolling, a lot of luck involved, but that's the whole fun of it, I think. I'm no good with strategy games. Oh no, it's Harbinger. I'm no good with strategy games, so I like games with a lot of luck and a lot of theme, and that's why I like things like Eldritch Horror and Dungeon Quest and Talisman. And all that sort of stuff. I love that sort of thing because it's all based on random charts. There is quite a few bits of skill, but all random basically. This is the day and night card. You can use this to make enemies harder at night, or during the day easier to defeat. Then you've got the alignment cards, which will allow you to change to good, evil, or neutral, and that can affect some games and some effects of cards. You've got terrain cards, so sometimes terrain cards will come up where they will change a certain space into a ruin, or they'll change it into a wood, or they'll change it into a rift, and those spaces on the board will permanently be stuck as that particular terrain type. You've got a huge spell deck, so obviously spells are staples in fantasy games, and you can, if you're a wizard or you've got your craft high enough, you can cast horrible spells on people, or spells that will change the game. Like this one, for instance, I'm just looking at the back here. Summon Serpent. Cast when you are about to engage in battle. The serpent fights in your place with a strength of 4. If the serpent wins the battle, the creature is killed, or the opposing character must lose 1 life. If the serpent loses, your turn immediately ends. Enemies killed may not be taken as trophies. So that's cool. If you don't want to fight, if you're shitty in combat, you can summon the serpent to fight for you, which is cool. You've got a purchase deck, which means whenever you go to town you can purchase cards from this generic purchase deck, such as a shield, which is an object, armour. If you are defeated in battle, you must. If you are defeated in battle, you just lose or just lost a life. Roll 1 die. If you roll a 5 or 6, the shield protecting you, and you protect yourself from losing that life. So that's cool. So the shield can protect you from losing life, basically. These are the what are these? Yeah, these are the woodland cards. So again, woodland is an expansion where you can go in and you can get these path cards, which will, if you complete that particular path or that particular sort of quest, you will get a certain reward at the end of that particular path that you've chosen. So it's just like the whole woodland expansion is about destiny and fulfilling your character's destiny and choosing the path that he was meant to walk on and all that sort of thing. So it's quite a sort of fate-driven, destiny-driven expansion, Woodland. I haven't really delved into Woodland expansion that much. I mean, again, this game doesn't come to the table as much as it should, and I'm looking for players to play. My best mates, they do like games, but one of them's into more Magic the Gathering, and the other one is more into Netflix and chill. Whereas myself, I love to sit around the table and lose a lot of my games. And they don't seem to have the time for that anymore, which is a shame, because I absolutely love this hobby of mine, and I don't get to exploit that hobby enough. Then we've got these cards, which are the city cards. So there's a massive expansion which goes onto the city, which allows you to pick up bounties. I'll show you one of these. So you can go into the city and pick up a bounty card, like this for instance. Wanted, spirit. So you grab this poster, you can pay a gold piece for this poster, I think, and it means that if you track and hunt down a spirit enemy, when you claim this bounty, gain gold equal to the amount of trophy points you discard from enemy spirits. So if you have a spirit trophy in your player area, and you found a spirit that was a craft or strength 6, for instance, if you killed that enemy, then you could use that enemy's craft or strength value to cash in this for gold of equivalent value. So if you're playing like the Assassins or Thieves Guild quest, or main sort of goal, you can get a lot of gold by taking down bounties, which is good. So the city deck again, it's got generic encounters in there for just the city only, so let me just pull one out and show you. Urchin, a street urchin. He's a follower, so if you meet him in the street, he will follow you. So the street urchin allows you to, you may roll 2 dice for your movement in the city and add them together to determine how far you move. So he can fucking waltz you around the city. So you can, instead of rolling 1 dice to move, you'd roll 2 dice to move instead. So that's a good one for whipping around the city, the urchin. So that's the city cards. So all the cards I've gone through so far, obviously you've got your character cards and your main quest cards. So all these little quest cards here can replace the standard game format. Then you've got all your characters that I went through. You've got your generic quest deck, which was used, not quest deck, your generic encounter deck basically, which is used when you're in the middle board. You've got your dungeon encounters, you've got your woodland encounters, you've got your spells, you've got your city encounters, you've got your highland encounters, you've got your day and night cards and alignment and terrain cards, you've got your purchase deck. So there's loads of cards that come with this game, absolutely loads. And I'll go into other stuff now, which is like more expansions. There's a couple of tokens here which are special character abilities. You've got your Spider Queen token there, you've got your Totem Armor, Totem Warrior token there. So they're specific tokens for specific characters. You've got little bases for your characters here that you can put on so you can easily identify who's who by the red, blue, green, yellow, purple base. You've got your generic Talisman dice, which are great. I love them. Oh yeah, you've got another set of deck of cards here, which are your Warlock reward cards. So normally, when you visit the Warlock in the middle space of the Talisman board, you can complete a quest for the Warlock. And when you complete a quest for the Warlock, he will give you a talisman. If you've already got a talisman, or you don't want a talisman for whatever reason, maybe you don't want to win the game, then you can pick up a Warlock quest reward, which is one of these. So instead of picking up a talisman, which will ultimately win you the game, you can pick up a Warlock quest or reward card. Let's pull one out and see what it does. Oh, no, that's not one. That's not a Warlock quest card. Or what is it? What is it? What's this? I can't remember what these cards are. They're definitely Warlock cards, but I can't remember how they're used. At all. So let's pick out a normal one. This one. Auspice. Keep this card. You may discard this card after you draw an adventure card to draw 1 additional adventure card. Then choose one of the adventure cards you do not wish to encounter and discard it. So basically this will give you the drop on horrible adventure cards. So you can discard this card after completing a quest. So this will just sit in your play area until you need to use it. So let's just say you're a level 1 character, or you'd be a level 1 character at this point. But let's just say you're a craft-driven character, you're a wizard, and suddenly you got this ability in your reserve that you just occasionally need to use it. And you're travelling around and you suddenly find a brute ogre of strength 12, and you've got a strength of 2 because you're a wizard. You can immediately discard Auspice and get rid of that ogre card and draw another one. And if that other one is more fruitful, you can discard the ogre card and then draw and use the other one that you've just got. So that's quite good. That's just one example of a reward card that you can get for completing Warlock quests when you don't want a talisman. So that's all the stuff that I've put in the base box of my Talisman game. I think all the boards and stuff are in the dungeon one, which I'll show you in a second. There's another couple of things in here. This is the Harbinger. So these are NPC characters that can be used in the game as well. You've got the Harbinger. who brings about the end of the world. Loads of horrible things happen when he's playing. You got the werewolf, which will run around and turn people into werewolves as well. And werewolves have like specific bonuses during the night, but then they have to do certain things during the day, or they suffer a lot of penalties if they're not in the right places. And then you've got the Grim Reaper, so you've just got death walking around, and if you chat to him, that's can be really bad for you. Yeah, that doesn't go down well if you talk to death. He doesn't like you. He just sort of kills you. So that's the like NPCs that you can use in the game as well. So let me just pop these back in the box, and I'll show you the boards that come with the game and the other stuff in the other box. So I've got a shit ton of cards. I really need to put these in a bag of some sort. I don't know why they're loose in this box like this. I don't know why they're loose in there, but fuck it. At least I got that on camera though, didn't I? The fucking cards flying out of my hands like that. Lentil sauce. Wild sauce, as Zebos here would say. Wild sauce. Okay, so what your cards there, put those there to stop them from playing around. So many components. So many components. I love it. Such an awesome game, but it never gets played. Never gets played, and I spent so much money on it. I'm going to try and get Mish to play this at some point. Will that ever happen? Probably not. She'll look at all these models and all these cards and be like, what the fuck? I don't want to play this game. I don't understand how it works. What the fuck do I do? Cool, so that's all the stuff that's in my base box game. So that's all the components really. All the boards aren't in there. Why is this not showing? Why is it not showing? Characters are taking up too much space. There we go. Problem with board games, you get so many of them, you have to fucking rearrange them like a bloody chest of drawers. Right, there we go, that's the main box. Now this is the dungeon box, this is where I keep all the boards and expansion boards. So let me just show you the main boards first. These are all the expansion boards here. So this is the main board. This is the main board. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this actually. Let's just sprawl out. I used to do this more often because I miss playing these games, so just getting them out, it's just like, oh, I love it. So this is the main board. It's lovely, isn't it? Look at that. That is lovely. That is lovely. I'll try and adjust the GoPro here so you can see a bit more of it. Yeah, so this is the main board. Depending on what sort of character you are, you would start on one of these spaces on the edge here. So for instance, the assassin will start in the city, which is over here. And if you're playing with the city expansion, the city board will go on the outside there. But if you're playing with the druid will probably start in the woods. But this is the main board. So the idea of the game is to grab a talisman from somewhere. The talisman can either be got from the Warlock's Cave, or it can be acquired in any of these spaces due to the cards that you draw. And once you've got the talisman, you have to make it to the Crown of Command, where you'd start firing off command spells to kill the other players. That's the main premise of the game, is to grab a talisman from wherever you can and get to the centre and then kill everyone with that talisman, with those talisman spells. There are other variants to the game as well, which will force you down certain paths and having you trot around the board to certain places and pick up certain things and what have you. And that's where I think the game really shines, when you play one of those variants, where I've got loads of them. I showed you them earlier. And you also have to be obviously going around the board, levelling up your character's strength or your character's magic in order to get through this door and fight these enemies in here before you get to the main Crown of Command. So levelling up your character and grabbing items and things that are going to help you get to the centre of the board is also essential. So that's the main board. So let's give you some scope on how that looks. But then you have expansions such as, what's this? This is the Highland. So this is another board that connects to this board, Where does it go? It goes in the crack, so it's this is over here. So you would place this board over here like this, like that. And if you imagine, there's a corner piece for each part of this board here. So I'm going to demonstrate how big this game can get. And I haven't actually played a game with all 4 corner boards yet. So you're about to see the full extent of the board. So this is the woods, this one here. This one connects to, where is it? Woodland entrance. Where is it? Woodland entrance. To the forest. So here, the forest goes here, like that. As you can see already, it's getting quite large. Quite large. So you've got 2 corners here that are expanding quite big. So let me just move this out here because I'm going to have to expand it even further. And I don't think they make tables that are big enough for this game and all of your character pieces, so you just have to play on the floor. Well, that's probably what I'm going to have to do when my mates come around to play. I'm going to have to play in here, I think. Obviously remove this rug, because this rug just makes it uneven. So that's the board so far. Then you've got the other expansion, which is, what's the next one? The city. So the city goes over here. Like so. That's perfect. We've got city. And then finally, the last expansion that I bought for this game was the dungeon, which I have not played with yet. And that is this board. I spent £150 on this expansion because it's very hard to get and it's out of print. And I haven't played with it yet. So it cost me fucking loads of money to get this. And there's a dungeon expansion. So as you can see, with all the expansions out, it is quite a large game. Quite a large game. Look at the size of that. Massive. Absolutely massive. The scope of it is just unreal, really. And that's why I need to get it to the table more, because it's just awesome. Every single one of those spaces you can encounter different things on. And it just makes just for an all-round fun experience. So if you want to play as a result of this video, give me a shout and we can organise something. Thank you for watching.